Hi, welcome to True Creeps, where the stories are true and the creeps are real. We'll cover stories from grotesque gore to the possibly plausible paranormal, to horrifying history, to tense and terrible true crime, and everything else that goes bump in the night. We're your hosts, Amanda.
And I'm Lindsay, and we want you to join us while we creep.
We cover mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone. Today, we are going to be talking about traditions with strange origins.
Love it.
Have you ever done that where you wonder why we do a particular tradition or like why it's a common practice?
Yes.
Or am I crazy?
Very often. I also whenever I'm about to say a phrase in any public forum, I Google the origin of the phrase.
Fair.
There's so much stuff that's just fucked up and you're didn't even know. I want to be a good human communicator. So I'll let me just Google this real quick. And I'm oh, okay, so don't say that. That's okay to say. Speaking with the least amount of harm, if you will, you know?
Yeah. Well, this episode came up because years ago, when I was planning my wedding, I ran into an article about the origins of bridal parties, and it's always stuck with me. So now when I go to weddings, I'm oh, okay, that tradition is this in my head. So I brought it up to Lindsay a couple weeks ago, and we were are there other common traditions that everyone does that have a weird or spooky origin? And we found that.
We found that the answer was yes. Yes, there are.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I also just when you think of nowadays when someone asks you to be a part of their wedding, oftentimes it comes with a very big cost expenditure, and you're I'm probably gonna be asked to buy an article of clothing that I will never wear again, and wear shoes that I don't want to wear, and have to conform to someone else's determination of what I should look like at a given point, which isn't the most comfortable thing to do, but that isn't as nearly as bad as what used to be expected.
Yes.
It made me wow, it's actually not so bad now.
Yeah, we got off pretty easy, right?
Yeah. Easy in quotes, but yeah.
So there's a hint of what we'll be talking about. And to note, some of these may have several origins within different cultures, but we're going to be focusing on the ones that were, more strange or just caught our attention.
Yeah. Just in case this is the first time you're listening to True Creeps, the third host is my dog snoring. Her name's Moo. She will be snoring throughout the entire episode. I will not be kicking her out of the room. Just a little PSA, if you will.
She looks way too comfy anyways. I would never.
Yeah, she's super comfy.
So what we're going to start with is wedding traditions because they're fucking weird. And so Lindsay already brought up bridesmaids. Well, some sources say the actual word and task of, tending to the bride may be biblical, but the history of being a bridesmaid has included some very strange duties over the years. So in ancient Rome, people believed that bad or sometimes evil spirits could show up at weddings. So in order to confuse these spirits, bridesmaids wore similar outfits to the bride. So same color, usually everything, just so you couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah, which is interesting now because now it's considered taboo to wear white to someone's wedding unless they specifically say to wear white.
Right.
So it's interesting that that's really changed. But so additionally, in many cultures, brides would come with a dowry or money or other riches. And some would even have to travel from their home to the groom's village or town. And it could be a very long journey, which Amanda, no part of me thinks that you've watched Bridgerton, but have you watched Bridgerton?
No.
Okay. Well, there's Bridgerton and then there's the prequel, which is Queen Charlotte, both a treasure and a delight. But in Queen Charlotte, she travels. And so it just immediately made me think of that because when they're traveling, she's meeting the king and she's in this very ornate dress and she looks horrifically uncomfortable. And her brother makes some sort of comment, "You look uncomfortable." And she was like, Do I look uncomfortable? Perhaps it's because she explains she's wearing a whalebone corset and whalebone corsets were relatively fragile and that it could snap and stab her and that she has sapphires that were very sharp. So if she moves, it might rip the very expensive lace and then cut into her, which would make her jump and would make the whalebone corset break and stab her. And she's so I'm sorry if I look uncomfortable, right? And they're also this incredibly long carriage ride, but it just made me think of that. Oh, I'm sure they were dressed in their wedding clothes then too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so they're traveling to a destination to get married with a dowry and other valuable items, which would naturally make them a target for robbers. So highwaymen, probably with evil horses, would sometimes be looking out for them. Also, rival suitors would be looking out for them, which all I can imagine is just like a carriage with like fancily dressed men in like pantaloons being like, no, wed me, leave your betrothed. Like, that's what I picture.
I think it was a little more bloody.
Probably. I mean, I'm assuming so. And there was also a risk for being full on kidnapped on this journey. We'll talk about more about that in a moment when we get to the best man tradition. But to help safeguard brides in their travels, bridesmaids would be used as decoys to the bandit. And so when you think of traditions, often a bride is wearing a veil. And one of the reasons for that is also to help shield their face, because bridesmaids would also be wearing veils. So if you're thinking of decoys, if they don't look super similar in the face, it's okay because they have a veil on. Like, you're just looking for like roughly the same build, and a person with a veil carrying a dowry, you're looking for like big money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of, the maid of honor was typically responsible for carrying the monetary portion of the bride's dowry, which put her at greater risk.
At least we don't have to do that anymore. Like, we don't have to risk our lives if someone goes, will you be my matron of honor?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lot to ask a friend. Like, that's a really big ask. Like, hey, do you mind being my decoy and possibly getting kidnapped so I can get married? In my head, like, I feel like this just has to be more of a paid position. A weird, heavy ask.
Right. And what we saw too is way back in history, it wasn't even people that you knew that were your bridesmaids. It was basically your servants, the people that would serve you typically.
Yeah, like that's what I'm thinking of. Like, it's like people who they're considering expendable.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should, but I'm saying at a period in time when they were shipping off women with dowries, right? It's not altogether surprising that they're going to treat a lot of people like their lives are not very important.
It's so crazy.
Yes. But just like, hey, friend, do you mind being my decoy and possibly getting kidnapped? Like, I don't think that would work well today. I also don't think that people are generally like, someone's getting married, let's get them. like rubbing their hand. I'm sure there's people who like do steal stuff that is wedding related, but like just not in this situation. But anyway.
Right. There's more scams, I think, than anything.
Yeah.
It's just changed.
So much. So additionally, another tradition is that the bride typically stands on the left side. And that's because typically this way the groom was on the right, and this way their right hand was free to easily draw their sword just in case the kidnappers showed up. Like, these weddings are very dramatic is what I'm hearing. Like, everything is just fucking Game of Thrones.
Right. And I never knew that. Like, the left side, like, I stood on the left side because that's what my venue told me to do.
Yeah, I didn't even consider
I didn't know why.
which side to stand on. I was just like, okay, whatever you want. For me, I was like, this makes sense because of just like the way I was walking in. Because I was walking from a direction where it would make sense for me to like go into that side, and he would be able to see me the best, you know?
Okay. Mine was like, there's no rhyme or reason. They just said, you stand on your left side. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, will do.
They told me to do this.
One of my favorite things, if I'm watching like a wedding video or seeing wedding photos, it's always to see whichever person is already at the altar watching the other person come in. That is always what I want to see. Like, I'll steal a glance at the person who's walking in second, but whomever is at the altar already, their face to see their person, like that always gets me.
Yeah.
Okay. So the tradition of wearing white comes from Queen Victoria's wedding in 1840. And that was a royal wedding. So it's not surprising that this would start to trickle down in terms of like fashion. But all 12 of her bridesmaids wore white dresses, and she wore a white satin gown. And then what's interesting is that in America, before this trickled over, American brides wore dark colors, or they would wear a dress that they could just wear it again. Like, it was a nice dress, but they would wear it again.
Yeah. And I saw the reason for that too is because wearing white, not only is it hard today to wear white because it gets dirty, but especially back then, it would be hard to clean it.
Yeah.
So it was just unheard of because you'd wear like darker colors because then it didn't show all the stuff that got on it.
Yeah. Well, and like to a certain extent, it also is like a part of purity culture, right? Like you wore a white dress if you were a virgin, and like you should be wearing off-white if you're not, which is fucking weird. Like who are the dressmaker shops like, hey, have you... Oh, you're a harlot?
They have a questionnaire.
Over to the fucking off-white and wear a champagne dress, you slut. Like... Who's checking that? That's just wild to me.
I want to see that on the Say Yes to the Dress show.
Say Yes to the Dress. Oh man, that show makes me like very angry because inevitably there is always in every episode where the person walks out, they're in their dress, they look stunning, gorgeous. But in addition to looking stunning and gorgeous, they themselves in the dress are shining and beaming and sparkling and like feeling so wonderful. And then there's someone with their arms folded that's like, I don't like it.
I like the one I picked.
Yeah. And then you just see like their spirit get fucking crushed. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, clearly you can just go get fucked. But like, that's what makes me mad about it. I'm like, they were so happy. Why couldn't you just let them fucking have that?
Weddings are fucking brutal in so many ways.
They fucking are. What a time.
I mean, we don't ask our bridesmaids to, give up their lives for our dowries or anything, but it's still a blow to like egos and stuff.
Yes. Well, it's also like every part about it is expensive too, right? Like the dresses are expensive and inevitably you'll have to get them tailored in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And then are you going to get your hair done? That's expensive. Are you going to get makeup done? That's expensive. And oftentimes you're doing it with the bridal party. So they have a person coming out to do it. So it's more expensive.
Yep. And then just any vendor that caters to weddings is more expensive. So like if you get food for a party of some kind, typically it's less expensive than a wedding or photographer or, everything, just every single piece of it.
Every part of it. Now, that being said, though, like I had the whole big wedding thing. Would do it again.
Oh, yeah. It was so much fun.
If you want to hear us talk about our weddings, listen to the outro after the outro because we've got a long conversation there.
So, as Lindsay just mentioned, the evolution of the white dress, right? So it ended up being a European trend until about the 1840s of wearing white. And typically it was only for the most privileged and wealthy people. Because again, like it was hard to take care of a white dress and expensive to make and maintain. And so then it, slowly trickled down and became a more common tradition to wear white.
I also wonder if that's one of the reasons why people were wearing dresses throughout several generations.
Probably, yeah. It was very expensive to get made. So another tradition, having bouquets at weddings. And long ago, bouquets weren't necessarily pretty, but they were more for superstition and they were a little functional as well. And bridesmaids would often carry herbs and garlic, and that was to ward off evildoers. Think of like a spell, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
I'm just also imagining, there's no reason for me to picture this, but I am imagining rather than just like a traditional bouquet, somebody has a loaf of garlic bread. Like in the silver package. Do you know what I'm talking about from the grocery store?
Yeah.
That in particular.
Perfect. I love it.
Delicious.
Garlic bread.
Take a bite halfway down the aisle. When they get up, they're like, do you want a bite?
Yeah. But some of the bridesmaids and brides had flowers within their herbs as well. So kind of like a bouquet. But also one of the purposes long ago for them to carry these items was to help mask body odor because they couldn't bathe that often.
But like, how bad is your body odor if you need garlic? Like, garlic's gonna smell better than your body odor. That makes my stomach turn a little bit, the idea of it, right? Like, you smell so bad that garlic is what you need to smell good,
Right? Well, and if you think about it, if I remember right, the way that people would bathe in certain periods of time, the man would be allowed to bathe first. Then it would be, the sons, I believe, and then the moms, and then the female daughters. Like there was like an order. I don't remember if that was the correct order, but like they wouldn't have clean water to bathe in. It would be gross water too.
I'm nauseated by the idea of it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Modern plumbing, what a treat.
Yeah. We also might be able to thank Queen Victoria for it becoming more of what we see today in a bouquet, because she carried a small bouquet of her favorite flowers at her wedding.
She probably smelled amazing.
It still may have been to mask her odor.
Well, because even if you got to bathe that day, I mean, especially a royal wedding, you're going to likely have long sleeves, high neck.
Yeah.
It's going to be thick. You're going to sweat. And it's not like they had deodorant like we have now. Like,
Right.
they probably had something that they used, but it wasn't that. So there's probably an odor.
Mm-hmm.
Sexy. Hot. Literally hot.
Literally. Also, we saw that the tradition of throwing your bouquet used to be the bride throwing one of her shoes at one point. There's also more on bouquet tosses that we'll talk about soon. But again, a small bouquet seems way less painful than a shoe coming your way.
I'm hoping that they're just tossing it, not like chucking it. Like you're imagining it like, you're going to be fucking next. And you like throw it like a threat.
I'm thinking of like a heel going and spiraling in the air.
Yeah, but if you like do like an underhanded toss,
Maybe.
you're talking about just fucking chucking it into the audience, like trying to hit an eye.
You know what? What we're going to talk about in a few, they may have to get them to get away from them.
Honestly, you're right.
But I have seen some duels over a bouquet in the last few years, and they get intense.
I don't understand that. I get the idea of like wanting to be next, but the bouquet truly has no bearing on that, right? Like you don't need to be out for blood. Like it's not magic. It's not going to be like, I have the mystical bouquet. No one can wed before I, right? Yes, but I have seen people get weirdly competitive with it.
Yes. So another, I'd say more creepy origin in a wedding tradition is the garter toss. And like in my head, I feel like I knew some of this, but researching it and going, oh my gosh, this actually did happen just made it even more horrible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But historians haven't really agreed, but it either started in like the 14th or 19th century, but it was during a time that consummating the marriage happened immediately after the rings were exchanged.
Fucking wild.
Right? So guess what? Fucking follow the couple into the bedroom to ensure that there were witnesses.
There's no world in which that makes sense to me because like I understand in a time period where there were heirs and you wanted certain bloodlines. Even then though, it's not as though you could guarantee a baby was conceived then, right? Like there's no way to like now with modern science, you can find a conception date a little bit more easily ish, but like back then it's not like you could be like, okay, therefore, they had sex. She couldn't have possibly had sex with someone before or after him. It could only be his baby,
It's wild. It's wild. So now let's talk about those guests that followed them, right?
Jesus, following them just abso-fucking-lutely not.
So the guests that followed would then try to grab a piece of the bride's dress or undergarments for good fortune. And this wouldn't just happen, I guess, as clothes were coming off. It would happen like as they were walking to the bedroom too. They would just like grab pieces of their dress.
The fight that I would get in with somebody if they tried to grab a piece of like my dress or outfit or whatever. Like,
right.
Can I fucking help you?
But then as clothes are flying off, they would like steal pieces of it. And so at that point, the garter that held up the bride's stockings became like the sought after prize.
Interesting.
Then we read a couple differing things, and slowly like this terrifying, horrible tradition evolved a little bit to where everyone would wait outside the room. And what the groom would do is he would throw the garter out of the bedroom to the guests.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly that moved to the reception.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew. I still think it's a fun tradition because we aren't doing it now for that reason. Like it grew from a fucking weird place, but we can enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Ish.
So fucking weird. So bizarre.
Yeah.
And one source said that part of the reason why the bride throws her bouquet and the groom throws the garter was as a diversion so that they can make the getaway without the people grabbing at them and like grabbing at her dress and ruining it. So they're like, here, grab this as they like run away.
How about you say, if you fucking touch me, you're gonna get punched.
Well, now we can say that. Before we weren't allowed to say
just
anything.
put the decoy brides all around him like a fucking shield.
So on top of risking your life, now people are going to take your dress apart while you're wearing it.
Right.
And because dresses became so, expensive, they didn't want people ruining their dresses. But completely bizarre.
Again, you get fought. So fucking weird. So, okay, continuing on with traditions. Let's talk about the father walking the bride down the aisle. So, we all know this, but we're going to say it anyway, even though it's annoying. But fathers used to use their daughters almost as currency. So they would marry their daughters off to pay debts, as a peace offering, to gain higher social status. Look, if you're talking about royals, to bring fucking kingdoms together for peace alliances. But this isn't shocking, right? Because it's up until relatively recently that women weren't seen as property. So it's not altogether strange that they were treating them as property when it came to marriage as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for many marriages, it wasn't a matter of love, right? It was an agreement to have children, to preserve a bloodline for lots of things, right?
Yeah.
So the father walking the daughter down the aisle was kind of like delivering the product this person had purchased from him, right? It's gross, but it is true. It was kind of like giving away his ownership of her and him like fulfilling his like part of the deal, which is pretty fucking gross.
Yeah.
Don't love that. Yeah, I had my dad walk me down the aisle, but I never saw it as like, oh, my dad is like now giving me to my husband. Like, it was never that. And like,
Right.
I want to think that Ben reached out to my parents before he proposed. I don't think it was so much to like get their permission, but to like get their like blessing, to be like, hey, I want to be a part of your family. Is that cool with you? And the two relationships I was in before him were fucking bad. So like him being like, I want them to see that it's not that. Like, you're never going to be in that again. I think that was part of it. Was like,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they feel good about this too, because we're all going to be a family. And so I think that some of these things that exist now, they have different motives.
Yeah, exactly. It's evolved quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which is good. So good.
Yes. So, okay. Next, we're going to talk about the best man. So the original reason to have a best man was so that if there was a fight, this person was your backup. Because the groom sometimes would kidnap the bride, especially if the parents had said no. Fucking fuck. Or in situations where the community that they were in didn't have a lot of women, sometimes they would kidnap a woman from a neighboring community and force her to marry. Fucked up.
Yeah.
But for the best man, the best, it didn't stand for bestie. It stood for best with a sword, because it was the best swordsman, right? Like, it was like you wanted the best fighter to back you up for when you were kidnapping people or if you had to fight people during your wedding.
Now, thinking of like your best man, it just is hilarious because like our best man, I could only imagine him in a fight.
Who is Mike's best man?
Chris.
Okay, Ben's best man was his bestie, Marlene. I think that she could probably hold her own in a fight.
She could hold the sword. She could be ready.
I don't know if a sword. I mean, maybe.
I love
But
that.
I think that she could. I think she could tussle.
Chris would just die.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like all of the people in the wedding party, and I'm like, I think that on Ben's side, she would be a good tussler, if you will.
Okay. He picked the best swordsman then. That's great.
Yeah. So the best man would also guard the newlyweds' bedroom that night. And that was for both, one, people trying to break in to steal shit because they were like, I got to get a piece of that bridal fit. And then also, don't like this, if the bride tried to escape. Because again, remember that sometimes these were not willing brides.
Right.
So the best man would be there for bad reasons, which fucking wild.
Right.
Just in fucking insane. Just terrible. Fuck all of this. Like, ugh. But so, in some parts of history, the best man was also tasked with safeguarding the ring, which is still, to this, like, it's still part of the best man duties is to hold the ring. So, interesting.
Right. But luckily, no one's trying to steal it most of the time. Like, the highwaymen
Yeah.
aren't, like, on their way to try to steal the ring.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
But don't you look at weddings a little differently now? Like, what the fuck?
I mean, no part of me felt like any of the traditions had a history that I wanted to know about. You know, I was like, I'm not going to look this up. Like, I don't want to know why I'm doing this. I knew the part about like the father, like walking down the aisle. I knew that, but like, I was like,
Yeah.
you know, that's not what this is. So I feel comfortable doing it, you know?
Right.
But like, yeah. Ugh.
Well, let's move on to cakes and candles. But the first one is going to be the wedding cake. We're still a little bit on weddings.
Okay, so we're out of wedding traditions. We're moving into a new topic of traditions, cake and candles. And it just happens to be that the wedding cake is first. Yes?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
excellent.
So after a wedding, it was assumed that a baby and a christening would soon follow.
I mean, if it's within wedlock, 9 months tops, like 9 months minimum.
Right.
That doesn't feel like following. That feels like it's 9 months later.
It is. But instead of baking a new cake when the baby came, people would save part of their wedding cake for that occasion. And it was believed to be an omen of good luck.
Eating old cake does not feel lucky.
It does not, no. Then, over time, people were like, I guess the kid deserves a brand new, freshly baked cake.
Fresh. Everyone knows that babies love cake. Newborns love cake.
Well, I think it was for like the christening.
No, I know.
More so.
I know. But I mean, even so, that's still a baby. Like a baby.
Right. So then the tradition of having wedding cake on your first anniversary became a thing. So that cake, instead of holding it for 9 months, you're like, oh, I'll hold it for a few more and we'll just have it on our anniversary.
Oh, perfect.
So let's move away from wedding cakes and move on to birthday cake and candles, right? Like when you think of a birthday cake, you think of candles. So the earliest stories that include candles on cakes is linked to ancient Greeks. Once a month, they would celebrate the birth of Artemis by making round cakes. And they would light candles and place them on the cake. And that was to represent a glowing moon. And so what they thought is the smoke would carry wishes and prayers to the gods.
Okay.
Which is kind of fun.
I love the idea of a monthly cake night. Like, I support that.
I do too, yeah. One thing though, their cakes weren't what we think of cakes as today. Like they weren't these sweet,
No.
highly decorated cakes. But the first documented case of candles being on a birthday cake comes from Germany in 1746. And I love this guy's name, Count Ludwig von Ziffendorf.
Fucking right.
Love it. Had a big birthday celebration at his home with a large cake with candles. And the number of candles corresponded with his age. Then, after this, birthday cakes and candles spread throughout Germany and then through Europe. And then it made its way to the US around 1871. And then, just like a horrible fact that I found, and because I know it, everyone should know it.
It's also like, it's a given.
It's obvious. It's
like,
obvious.
If you didn't know this, yes, you did.
But it's like saying it out loud, like unlocks
Yeah.
it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But in 2017, there was a study from the Journal of Food Research about birthday cake candles. And it showed that blowing out candles on a cake increased the amount of bacteria on the icing by quite a bit.
You mean if you blow on it, you blow
Yeah.
on food, you're blowing on food?
Yeah. So that, by the way, is the bacteria coming from the mouth of the birthday person, right? Blowing out the candles. But according to the study's authors, the germ-covered cake is totally fine to eat. Just eat it. You're fine.
Delicious. Have you seen the videos of, I really want one of these for one of my birthdays. It's illegal for me to buy it for myself, you know?
Uh-huh.
So it's a candle, and when you light it, it like opens up like a flower thing and then it like, spins around. I'm like, that is the coolest fucking thing. What a time to be alive, you know?
I think we had one for my brother's birthday last year.
As you should, because they're amazing. Okay, we're moving away from deliciously germ-covered cakes and we're moving on to shaking hands. So, a very popular theory as to why handshakes began was that it was a gesture to convey that a person had peaceful intentions, which makes sense, right? Because you're thinking the person is extending their hand to a stranger. So then you could see that there wasn't a weapon in that person's hand. And then most people, when you shake hands, you're shaking with your right hand. And because most people are right-handed, that would be your weapon hand too. And, you know, again, like being left-handed was relatively uncommon, but it's also just as a fun note is that people thought that people who were left-handed were evil or unlucky. Throughout a lot of history, if a child was writing with their left hand, they would be like reprimanded. And if you were in a Catholic school, you might even get slapped with a ruler if you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Oliver's left-handed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You know who else is left-handed? Moo. She'll only give you her left paw.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's also suggested that the up and down motion for a handshake was to shake at any more hidden weapons like knives or daggers. And then it's believed that it's even gone back as far as ancient Egypt through ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and even medieval Europe. And the Romans even took it a step further. And in addition to like shaking the hand, there would be an arm grasp, which I feel like you see in a lot of like period types of movies. But that was to make sure that there wasn't weapons like, shoved up the sleeve.
I love that most of these traditions are to like keep someone from killing you.
Yeah, like let's fucking tussle or not tussle. That is the question. Okay, so next, covering your mouth to yawn. So centuries ago, it was thought that you should cover your mouth while you're yawning to prevent your soul from leaving your body. That seems like a real fickle soul if it's willing to leave just because you opened your mouth.
How scary, though, if you actually think like, oh no, your soul's trying to escape.
Not today.
Every time you get tired, it's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, I'm fucking out. In other cultures, though, rather than to keep a soul in, it was used to keep things out. So, for example, in early Islamic lore, it was suggested that a yawn allowed Satan to enter your body. And then to prevent this, you would cover your mouth. Wild.
Interesting, right?
A really eventful yawn, right? Because if you're yawning, like, presumably you are sleepy or you are not a sociopath who saw someone else yawn. You're yawning for sleepiness. So, like, to be like, oh no, right? Like, something's going to get out or something's going to get in sounds very alarming.
Right. So our last one for today is the origins of a pinky promise. And I've never even thought about this one.
Never, ever.
Right? Like the origin of a pinky promise.
I guess I was like, it's from a kid's book or something. Like, that's what I imagined.
It kind of. So the most common origin that we saw of a pinky promise may have come from a similar gesture in Japan called yubikiri. And hopefully I'm saying that right. I've listened to several different translations and they're all a little different. But what it means is finger cut off. And it is said to have started in the Japanese mafia. And it implies that if you break your promise, you have to cut off a finger as punishment. However, according to the Japanese folklore dictionary, the pinky promise goes way back to like 1603 to 1867. It may have been first established in Yoshiwara from a story about a sex worker who had the intention to amputate her pinky finger as a sign of her commitment or eternal affection to a customer.
I don't love anyone that much.
Interesting. The story spread to the public, but later on it shifted a bit, and some began to use pinky promise to confirm their love for each other and to signify an oath. Additionally, kind of like what you said, there is a nursery rhyme about a pinky promise as well. And of course it's translated. So I believe the translation is, if you tell a lie, drink 1,000 needles and cut a finger.
Okay.
So, okay. So after learning this, we were like, but why the pinky finger, right? Like, what's the significance?
Yeah.
And something that we saw is there's a legend of the red string in Japan. And this is actually kind of cute. According to the legend, all human relations are predestined by a red string that the gods tie to the pinky fingers of each person. So the red string sort of flows out from your pinky and it goes on to intertwine with the red strings of all the people that you're destined to have in your life. And so basically all the people that you should have in your life or like that you want in your life, you have a red string attached between your pinkies and it just like goes everywhere and they get messy sometimes, but you end up untangling them when you find like the right ones for your life.
I kind of like that. That's kind of sweet.
Isn't that adorable? I loved it.
Yeah.
And so what it means is your hearts are connected through your pinky. It was discovered that there's an artery that connects the heart with the pinky finger. So like, yeah, your pinky, your heart are connected. So if your pinkies are connected, your hearts are connected. And so for that reason, we believe that's why the pinky is significant.
Yeah, I like that.
Right? It's a cute story.
Yeah. Well, these are our traditions for today. If you know of a tradition with interesting or spooky origins, send them our way. I think we could do another one of these episodes.
Yeah, it was fun.
There's just so much, right? Like, the world is weird and we like it.
Yes.
Were any of these wildly surprising to you? We want to know. For me, I think that the garter one shook me the most.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was from. I figured it had to do with sex, but I didn't think it was that.
Right? It was just like a little over the top. I expected same thing. Like I knew it had to do a little bit with that, but like not quite that intense.
Absolutely. And then lastly, we're going to tell you every episode up until the deadline to submit is finished, but our Podiversary episode is coming up in the beginning of October, and we would love for you to send us your stories.
Yes, please.
They can be written or recorded. If you do send us your story, please make sure that you provide your mailing address because we are going to send you a limited edition sticker that you can only get by submitting your story this year. And you can submit your story by emailing it to us at truecreepspod@gmail.com, or you can fill out the form on our website. It's under Submit Your Story. It's pretty easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
Our website is truecreeps.com. Shocker there. But really, you've got a story that you want to tell anybody, we want to know about it. I want to hear people talk about things all of the time. So limitless possibilities as to what you could talk to us about.
Yeah, I love everyone's stories. Those have been some of my favorite episodes, is our Podiversary episodes.
Yes.
Because it's so fun to get to know everyone by like their weird happenings.
Yes, I agree. Well, with that, have a great weekend.
Thanks for creeping with us.
Thanks for listening. And as always, a special thank you to our patrons who support us via Patreon.
Please see the link in our show notes to learn more about how you, yes you, can begin to haunt the dump, guard vortexes, or even become a scorching Sasquatch.
Ooh. Also in our show notes, you can find the link to our website, more information on our sources, our social media handles, and our merch store.
We'd love for you to keep creeping with us. So if you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, and share the show with your fellow creeps and or ghosts.
I beg of you.
You know what it reminds me of is you with your baguette.
Ooh. I was happy as a fucking clam. That's all I wanted to eat. I was dying.
I'm just going to put it here. So when we went to Mexico, there was like a buffet and they had all these breads and they had baguettes. And she's like, I want a baguette. And I was like, okay, I'll get you one. And she's like, no, I don't think we're allowed to take them. I'm like, it's at the buffet. We're allowed to have a baguette.
That's our baguette now.
She was walking around the resort with a baguette in her hand. It was
Happily.
probably my favorite memory.
Joyfully with that baguette.
But yeah, she would carry a baguette down the aisle.
Can you tell that we miss our last vacation? Because if we keep talking
So
about it in
much.
every fucking episode.
It's summer. We should be there right now. I just came up on my memories too.
Yes. Would obviously make some changes because you
Yes.
learn some things, but like, not that I'm gonna get married again. It's more that like, if I was going back in time, I would still make the same choice.
Right. Just the little things that you spent forever on that didn't matter. You would put that time elsewhere. That's my takeaway.
No, mine was more that like there was a miscommunication as to like who would be running it, because there was supposed to be somebody from the venue who was just like making sure things were moving along correctly. And that woman, her daughter decided to get married that same day.
Oh no.
So she was at her daughter's wedding. So she had somebody filling in for her who was not as good at her job. And they actually ended up trying to, so like we had our cake and then we had a cake for everybody, and they gave our cake to all of the guests, which would have been fine, but for the fact that like we spent money on this big cake for everyone and they were cutting everybody tiny slivers of this other cake. So then we had this insane amount of cake left over and we barely got any of our own cake.
Oh no.
And also like our personal cake was like a lavender cake with a lemon curd and a vanilla buttercream, which is like very tailored to our taste. And what we got for everybody else was like a vanilla cake with like a raspberry jam,
Yeah.
and like a vanilla buttercream and like something else. And it was like delicious, but more like everyone friendly. So like we got this cake being like, oh, everybody will like this.
That's annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. But like when it came to like the little things, no, all the little things that I did, 10 out of 10. I'm glad that I didn't have a cricket already, because that would have made, I would have driven myself insane. But like, one of the things that I did for our wedding, because Ben didn't know the theme of our wedding. Like he knew the colors. He didn't know what it was going to look like. He didn't know anything. It was a surprise the day of. So like all the tables were like our chapter numbers, like for like, cause it was like our story. And then I had audio bits where he listened to like me explaining each chapter.
Oh, that's cute.
And he went from table to table with my maid of honor, which was my sister-in-law, Ashley. And so then there's like photos from like our photographer of him like bawling. And I was like, yes, I've won. And because, you know, I was like, it was very sweet. But one of the things that I did was I was like, I had, you know, little pom-poms.
Yeah.
I had one pom-pom for every day that I'd been in love with him.
Oh, cute.
At the, like, as of the day of the wedding that I died, but also my bestie Damien helped me die. And they were just kind of everywhere.
That's adorable.
So like, when you think of like weird little detail, that was one of the weird little details.
Oh, see, like I made our menus. Like I had a cricket. I didn't have a cricket at that time, but I made them like I had tools to do it.
Did you have a seated meal?
Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't do an omelet station because it was like $3 more per person. And they were like, we could do a scrambled egg station. And I was like, okay, I don't care if whether it's in an omelet form or not. It's eggs, because we did a brunch wedding. So we didn't have a full bar. We had like mules, bellinis, and mimosas. And the bellinis were actually just kind of like a thing that they threw in to be nice. But like it was because it was mimosas and mules was like what we were serving. And then we did chicken and waffles.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, so it was like good food that people would like without being like insanely expensive.
We did the opposite, but I was like, no, I'm going to make the menus. No, I don't want the venue to provide them. I want to make them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also made each invitation individually.
I think I designed it on, like, this was before I was like I was creative, but I wasn't super artsy at that point. Like, if I was doing it today, I would make it myself. But at the time, I think I designed it on like Vistaprint or something, because we did save the dates super far out. So I got magnets made. And then for our invitations, I think I did Vistaprint too. Brought to you by Vistaprint.
Oh, I did pocket invitations where it had like 3 pockets for everything, what we'll be serving there, the attire, our list, like everything that we had.
Oh, shit.
And I made them all, every single one. And we had like 120 people and I made it individually. It was the worst. I would never do that again.
You're like the fiance on Seinfeld that dies from like that level of into it.
Yeah, it was terrible. I was an idiot.
I was proud of myself for not going so in the fucking weeds, because I mean, like, I still did though, right? Like, all of our place card holders, I handmade. Like, it was one of the pom-poms with a piece of cardstock and then another piece of cardstock, and I hand stamped each person's name on them.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, because that way, like, it was like line. I want to think that I had them on the tables, and then like, I don't even remember what I did for a seating chart in the front. But like, our guest book was Jenga things.
We had a photo booth. So people would take a picture in the photo booth. They'd get a copy, and then one copy would go in my book that they would sign. So I could like remember what they looked like that day.
Yeah.
It was cute.
That's cute.
But I also made that too.
So our photographer, she was fucking amazing. Like, she was the first wedding vendor that I picked out. I went to like a wedding expo and I was like, I've got Ben and I want this photographer. I was like, after that, I'll figure everything else out. But
right.
She was like, oh, we'll do an hour of photography like after your reception, because it was like just like the right time of day to be stunning, and like the lighting was good. So Ben and I went with her while people were cleaning up, which was like, bless, thank you, right? So I didn't have to do it that day. But we left our phones with like the other people, and everybody thought that someone else had taken us home, and we didn't drive there. So they left us. We got stuck so we just left at the venue, and we didn't have our phones and we didn't have our wallets. So it's not like we could have like taken a cab or gotten an Uber or something. Like, we were truly stranded. And so luckily our photographer was there when we realized this. Like, she didn't like just like say like, okay, see ya, and then like us go inside and realize there was no one. But she gave us her phone to use, and I called my parents and my brother, and I was like, hey, where are you guys? I'm like, oh, we're on our way back. And I was like, oh, I don't remember the conversation, but I remember it was like, can someone come get us? And we don't have any phones. And they were like, wait, you haven't left already? And we were like, no. And they're like, we thought you left. And I was like, no, we're still here and no one's here. And they were like, oh my God. And like, people then began to panic, as one would. And then they came and got us. But like, it was actually this very sweet moment of like Ben and I just sitting outside together, like taking a beat.
Aw.
And it was like one of my favorite parts of the day. And we still like go to the place where our venue was. There's like shops and all in the place. And so we were there for our anniversary weekend last weekend, and for our dating anniversary weekend, because we celebrated 10 years. And whenever I see that bench, I remember that moment.
That's cute.
I'm like, do you remember when we got left here for our wedding? And he was like, yes, I do.
That's adorable. We got married in a castle.
Ooh.
Like, I don't know why it exists, but there's a castle here. And we had buses, essentially, like going back and forth, or I don't even remember what it was, going back and forth between the hotels and our venue all night.
Oh, damn.
So we had that when we were done. And then we ended up at a casino afterwards at like 1 a.m. with our bridal party. It was a rager.
Oh, damn.
We also had an open bar though. And like,
yeah,
by the end of it, he was like handing us each 2 drinks at a time.
Oh, shit.
It was not great. I mean, it was fun. It was phenomenal, but oh my gosh.
Yeah. We didn't do like a room block because our venue was like 45 minutes outside of Baltimore. And so we were like, we think people are going to be staying in Baltimore, so it doesn't make sense for them. There's nothing around this. Like, there's no fun, like, touristy things to do. So it makes more sense for people to stay in Baltimore and drive out there. So we were like, we're not going to do a room block. So we didn't do anything like that. But like, I love that there's an Arizona castle. That's a treasure and a delight.
Yeah. We toured probably like, I don't know, 15 venues. And we're just like, this one gives us the most space to like get ready. It was just great. Yeah. I had, instead of flowers, I did a brooch bouquet, which is fucking heavy.
Yeah. You can't throw that, though. If you throw that, it's
No.
going to kill a person.
No, it would definitely kill someone. But I remember by the end of pictures, I was like, I fucking hate this thing.
Yeah.
I can't hold it anymore.
Yeah, that's very, very fair. What was your something old?
The antique brooches.
Nice. I think I was wearing my grandmother's earrings.
Cute.
And then my something new was my mother-in-law got me a ring. And then what was your something new?
I think I put everything into the bouquet.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So I had antique brooches. I had a brand new one that like I think I went with Madison, my maid of honor, to buy. And then I borrowed her grandmother's brooch for my bouquet.
I actually don't know what my something old was because my earrings were borrowed from Ashley. I had something. I can't remember what it is at the top of my head. My something blue was the ring that my mother-in-law got me was blue.
Cute.
And then the other something borrowed that I had was, so when I was a little kid, my dad, he made up this story about like a cat and a bunny. And I found patches of a cat and a bunny, and I had them put into like up underneath my gown, like on one of the layers below. So I have photos of like me showing my dad like that like I brought Fluffy and Puffy with me that day. As I get real misty even talking about it.
Oh, I love that. I just went to a Hello Goodbye concert a couple days ago. I had a friend play for our first dance a Hello Goodbye song on the piano.
I went down the aisle to, I am pretty sure it was a Star Wars ukulele song.
I love that. That's so funny.
I could be wrong. At least I was planning on doing that at one point. I don't know if I did it or not. It's all a blur.
I'm still mad that you didn't have the birds.
Dan the Birdman, baby. End of the episode fodder. Did Mike take your garter off?
Yeah, I didn't want to do it for the while, but then like everyone's like, "Oh, come on, you get over it. It's fine." And I'm like,
yeah.
It just seems like a fucking weird ass thing. What about you?
Yes, he did. So first off, Damien made me a garter.
Okay, see, like then you had to.
Yeah, he made me a garter to keep and a garter to throw.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, my something old was a little turtle from my Nana, by the way, because now I'm looking at my wedding photos.
Oh, cute. Because she collected them, right?
Yes, and the other part of it is that there is a crystal necklace that every Shanklin woman has worn when she got married.
Oh.
That I had on. I think I wrapped it around my bouquet. I am pretty confident that Ben hammed it up. I want to think he pulled it off with his teeth.
Yeah.
And yeah, hold on, I'm going to share my screen with you. So you can just see like the hamminess of it. So my little mint heels, Ben up under my dress. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he like truly like danced. And that's my nephew right here. But also, right, like we had like lots of queer people, right? So it wasn't just men standing back there. It was like,
yeah,
lots of people. That's my nephew who caught it. Wearing a blue velvet blazer, by the way. And then this was one of Ben's roommates from law school. Her daughter was the one who caught the bouquet.
Oh, cute.
Like, I don't know if you can see me like, whoa, in the back, but hilarious. And I want to, yep, he put it on with his teeth. Yeah, I did.
We did not do that part.
Yeah, we didn't know whether he was going to do that. We were like, whatever you're comfortable with.
That's funny.
Big kick out of it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's his dad being like, what funny as hell. So Mike did it as well, you said, though? He also pulled it off with his teeth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very awkward. It's like, there's so many people here. Like, I wanted a big wedding, but I wish no one was like looking at me.
Oh, I mean, dude, same.
That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, want a big wedding, want all of it, but also like feeling just so incredibly perceived.
Yes. But like it was really fun and everyone was dancing and
I actually did make a menu, I think. I made whatever this is. I made a thing over here.
Oh, timeline.
I did a timeline. I did characters because it was, I made bookmarks. That's what it was. Fucking Christ. I don't remember anything. Anywho, let's stop sharing my screen. Now we're doing a walk down memory lane.
Right.
Well, now we have to do some of our wedding photos though this week. Like in our first post.
Yeah. I sent you our wedding cake.
I'm sending you a photo of my hair just so you can see how much fucking hair there was. Okay, fucking Power Rangers wedding cake. Ours had like a watercolor vibe to it.
On our wedding cake, we had Sailor Moon and the red Power Ranger on the top.
I fucking love that for you. Our like little wedding hashtag was find your weirdo. So like on our invitations, like the little thing that sealed them said, let's get weird. I'm trying to remember. We had a cake topper. What the fuck it was, I couldn't fucking tell you. Also, our dresses are cut similarly, by the way.
Oh, were they?
I had the little sleeves in mine. I had added.
Oh, cute. Okay. Yeah, I had a little jacket thing in case it got cold, but you know, it doesn't get cold here. It was a little cool that night, but the dress itself was so hot that it didn't matter. Oh, and I decided that I had to make my shoes. Instead of just buying them, I had to make it.
Mm-hmm.
That was everyone's shoes.
I just bought mint colored shoes off of Amazon and called that a day.
See, smart. No. I was like, I can make it. Why would I buy it if I can make it? Like a fucking dumbass.
Why would I buy it if I could make it?
Yeah.
I think my sister-in-law maybe made, I bought like off-brand white Keds and put, and she did glitter on them, but like I'd never worn them before, so they were incredibly fucking painful. So like I think I just like had my toes in them and was barefoot a lot. And I was like, nobody can see underneath this fucking dress.
Some of the girls that I worked with got me custom chucks made with the date on the back.
Oh, that's cute.
But the thought of trying to put on chucks and lace them in my dress didn't happen. So I think I ended up barefoot for the longest time.
See, I mean, again, that's just part of it, right? We can continue on our actual episode. Sorry that it's becoming this, Amanda, but here we are. And now I can't stop.
So then the tradition of having wedding cake on your first anniversary became a thing. So that cake, instead of holding it for 9 months, you're like, oh, I'll hold it for a few more and we'll just have it on our anniversary.
Did you guys do that?
No, our baker said, do not do this to my cake. We will actually make you your top tier on significant anniversaries. So they remade it on our first anniversary, our 5th, and our 10th. And I think our next one would be the 15th.
Oh, that's sweet. Our baker, so because the venues, like Point Person fucked up the cake thing, they bought us a cake for our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, that's cute.
From our bakery. And then our bakery closed down, which was really sad.
Aww.
Did you save Sailor Moon and the Power Ranger?
Oh, yeah, those were our toys growing up.
No, my point is, when you eat them, do you put them on top again?
Oh, no. I think Sailor Moon's up here somewhere. I'm pretty sure Oliver played with the Red Ranger so much that he doesn't have limbs anymore.
Oh, perfect. Let's get back to our episode. So sorry, Amanda. So sorry.
Oh, fuck. I just closed our episode. I was like, done.
I'm done talking about this. It's wedding time. No, wed me. Leave your betrothed.